Okay, so the theme for the day is give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And I really love proverbs and quotes and sayings like this. And one of the reasons why is because they're timeless. The lesson that they're trying to teach you was relevant yesterday, it's relevant today, and it's going to be relevant tomorrow. But the only catch about these sayings and quotes and proverbs is that they're always really focused on just one thing. So it's really easy for you to forget that in everyday life that you live, nothing's as straightforward, nothing's as clear-cut as proverbs make them seem. So when you take a look at this saying, and you really think about it, you realize that it focuses in on just one thing. It focuses in on this man, this nameless man that you give a fish to feed, or you teach to so that he can eat for the rest of his life. But if you take a look at the bigger picture and look at the entire situation, you realize there's at least 3 people involved in this situation. You have the first person, this person who decides to look for the immediate solution and just treat the man's hunger by giving him a fish. So we can call this person the quick fixer. And then you have the second person who comes along and goes that extra mile and decides to invest in this person by teaching them a skill. So we can call this person the teacher. And then finally, you have the man himself, who ultimately becomes the learner. So when you think about the saying, you come to realize that it's really important to empower this learner and give them the skills so that they can make the difference in the future. So when you think about that, you realize that this quick fixer is kind of like a cop-out. He's not taking the time to invest in this person or make a real difference. But then, this teacher, he ends up being the hero because he goes that extra mile to make a difference. But I'd have to disagree with that. I'd say that all 3 of these roles are really important roles. And you have to be ready to be in each of those roles throughout the rest of your life. Everyone in this room has and will continue to move in and out of these positions as you progress and meet different situations. And as moments come and as moments go, you have the window of opportunity to make the choice. So every time you meet a new situation, just remember that you can choose who you're going to be. So it's a little unfortunate that the term quick fixer has gotten such a bad rap and reputation. Because sometimes the immediate solution and the quick fix isn't bad, and it's just what you need. And this is very applicable to volunteering or humanitarian work, especially international. So I work for an organization called Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. And for you guys who don't know what Doctors Without Borders does, we work overseas to provide emergency medical relief to people that live in countries that are affected by war, disaster, or disease. We send doctors, nurses, and non-medical staff like engineers and researchers to respond to emergencies. We provide medical treatment and implement projects to prevent the outbreak of future diseases. Our work is about treating people. We're not there to rebuild the country. We're not there to fix the country's problems. None of their political or social issues are our primary concern. So if you think about it, humanitarian organizations like MSF or Doctors Without Borders, they're a quick fixer. We go in, we treat people, but the instability in the country still persists. So does that make our work not important? It doesn't. It doesn't mean that. Our work is absolutely important. MSF often is the only medical health provider in the entire country. For those of you who remember in 2010, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake hit Haiti. It was heavily devastating. And aside from Cuban doctors, MSF provided 90% of all medical treatment in the aftermath. So if MSF wasn't there, lives would have been lost. So although we weren't able to solve Haiti's problems, they're still suffering from a lot of political and social unrest. We were able to save lives so that these people can see a better tomorrow and come together and rebuild their own country. So when you think about humanitarian work, quick fixes are necessary. But this is true also in your everyday life. There are so many issues. There's cancer, there's HIV, there's domestic abuse, there's poverty. There's so many things, and you just can't address it all. You can't solve all of the world's problems. But does that mean you don't care? Absolutely not. You can still care but you just can't solve everything. So I work in Toronto, and any of you guys who've been downtown will know that often along my route to work, I run into a homeless person or someone busking for change. And anytime I have change, I make the effort to give what I can. So at most, maybe I give like $2, $3, least maybe 50 cents, 75 cents. And should I feel guilty that I'm not making a bigger impact on this person's life and getting them off the streets? No. And should I feel like I should be a teacher instead of a quick fixer in this situation? No, not for me. Because although it might not seem like giving change is really making that big of a difference, it could kind of be like the saying, where the man gave him a fish and solved his hunger for the day. So by giving this person some change, they might be able to get themselves some food, or better yet, use that change to get to a shelter where there are people who have the skills and the resources to invest in them and get them off the street. So quick fixes are necessary, and I like to think of quick fixes as small but meaningful acts of kindness. So don't ever feel guilty for not being able to do a grandiose gesture in every situation that you encounter. You can show you care in so many different ways, in little ways too, like wearing a daffodil on your jacket to show that you're aware of cancer, or donating your clothes to Goodwill or any other charities, or simply just giving up your seat when you encounter someone with a disability. You can show you care in so many ways. And you may not be treating the disease or the root cause of the problem, but you're doing what you can to make people that have to deal with that live a better life. And you know what? When it comes down to it, the world really needs these small acts of kindness and compassion. So, 7 years ago, I was in high school, just like you guys, except a little bit more awkward. And I was trying to do the same thing that you guys are doing, figure out who I was, where I was going, and what I was doing. And 7 years later, flash forward to today, I'm still awkward, and I'm still trying to figure everything out. But that's the whole point of learning. You're a lifelong learner, and you're going to keep learning as you move forward. And the best thing about the role of the learner is that it's one of the easiest to play. For most of our lives, we had someone leading us, training us, or telling us and teaching us along the way, and telling us what we need to learn. So being in that role feels pretty familiar, especially for you guys who are students. Your occupation is pretty much to learn, so you guys are professionals at this. But the problem with growing up and feeling so comfortable with learning is that you can fall into the trap, and you can just become a passive learner, and you can just learn what people tell you to. And I'm not trying to say that math and science and English and all the things they teach you in school isn't important. It's just that there's so much more beyond the walls of a classroom that you can learn. And people are always telling you to think outside the box. But I urge you to go a little bit further, not just think outside the box, but actually live outside the box. So when you start doing this, you become an active learner. You're looking for opportunities that you can learn things that you care about, learn things that drive you, that motivate you, that you're really passionate about. And this is when learning can start to feel a little bit scary and not as comfortable as it was before. When you start doing things that you care about doing but your parents don't agree with, or you start doing things that people don't expect of you, or you start trying something new that you've never done before and you don't know anyone that's done it before, it's absolutely terrifying. And it's okay to be scary. It's a good kind of scary. It's kind of like that feeling that you have when you're on a roller coaster. It's just about to plunge. You have that mixture of anxiety and fear and wonder and anticipation and a little bit of why the hell am I doing this? But it's a good kind of fear that you should embrace. And once you start embracing it, you'll start doing things that you love. You'll be motivated in choosing the kind of career and life that you want to be, or the kind of person that you want to be. And then when you start doing these things, I really believe that you'll end up achieving your dreams and living in it. And I can say this because it happened to me. So back in high school, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to save the lives of all the people in need, and I had this superhero complex just like most doctors that you'll meet, and they really believe that they're going to save the world. But I also felt that there was something more. There was something inside of me that was itching to to do more than just study textbooks or just sit in the classroom. So, I ventured all the way out to the Philippines. I traveled around the world to figure out who I was. And you guys, I'm not sure if you guys will remember, but around this time, Mariah Carey had put out an album called The Emancipation of Mimi. And it was supposed to be this huge thing where she's dropping the old her and she's moving forward with the new her. And that's what emancipation means. So I remember thinking that this trip is going to be the emancipation of Lisa, it's coming up Millhouse, and all those great things. And it was really scary, but I'm really glad that I did it. I ended up living with a family in Tacloban City in a small island called Leyte in the Philippines. And although it was urbanized, it was nothing like I've ever seen before. It was so polluted. Every time you blew your nose, it literally came out as black snot. And it was just ridiculously hot. You were sweating all the time. You were sweating while you were sleeping, while you're walking, and even while you were showering, you were sweating. Just all the time. And even though people call this an urbanized city, when the city got its first escalator, there were lineups of people to ride an escalator. Crazy things like that. And there were cockroaches everywhere. And I'm not just talking about the ones that crawl on the floor. These ones fly. I actually woke up with a cockroach on my face. Yeah. So I was totally out of my comfort zone, and I was facing a reality that wasn't the reality that I had grown to know. But this turns out to be the best learning experience that I've ever had. When I look back at it, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I learned so much more than I could have from reading anything in a textbook or sitting in a classroom. And here's what I mean. So when I was a volunteer in the Philippines, I worked in a rural health clinic that was 45 minutes to an hour away from the city and any major hospital. On my first day, I met with the doctor, Dr. Tan, and she introduced me to her staff and the technicians and midwives, and then she took me next door to meet the mayor. And as we were sitting and waiting for the mayor, all you can hear is this van screech to an abrupt stop at the clinic next door. And even before we can get to the window to see what had happened, I can already hear like this wailing sound. And it wasn't loud, but it was piercing. And it just kind of went right through me and pulled at everything inside. So Dr. Tan ran out, and I followed her. And I was just standing outside of the van, and I could see what had happened. There was a woman, and she was holding onto this little bundle, and she just kept rocking it back and forth as she kept crying. And as Dr. Tan climbed into the van, she looked over the little baby that the woman was holding. But from where I was standing, I could already see that this baby had already turned a lifeless, grayish blue. And this was day one. This was my first day at a clinic in the Philippines, and I was already facing harsh lessons like this. And this was just the beginning of all the things that I was going to learn. And I learned a lot. I learned what it meant to be growing up in a developing country. I learned what it meant to be, especially a young woman growing up in a developing country. It means not having access to contraceptives and not being able to choose when you get to be a mother. It means not being educated. It means getting pregnant twice before you reach the age of 25. And it means having complicated childbirths where you risk both your life and the child. And it means watching your children die before they reach the age of 5. But the most important thing that I learned from this experience was that I wasn't okay with these facts. I wasn't okay with just sitting back and being a quick fixer in this situation anymore. I wanted to do more, but I realized I had to learn more. So I was driven to be an active learner. I started to put myself in situations where I could learn more about about how to implement meaningful development projects and create change in social development. So I actually went back to the Philippines a year later, and I worked on a different project. This time I was working in a dump site trying to get kids who scavenge for plastics and glass so that they can sell and support their country or support their family. I was working with them to get them out of the dump sites and back into school. And then I started volunteering and working for a nonprofit at the University of Western Ontario. And I started to get more heavily involved with organizations in Canada that work with at-risk youth, in particular young girls. So I refused to just passively learn and just let things be taught to me. I decided to go out and look for things to learn. And I eventually realized that the path that I was heading down wasn't the path that I had originally set out to achieve. I was carving a whole new path. And this one led me to do a diploma in a not-for-profit management program. And this program actually gave me the skills that I can launch It Starts With Her, a program that won me the title of Canada's Next Top Young Philanthropist. And by doing this diploma, I also gained the skills that landed me my dream job with Doctors Without Borders, this organization that I dreamt of working with since I wanted to be a doctor. So, if I listened to my fears and I let obstacles stop me, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now. And I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be living out my dreams. I can't tell you how happy I am that I didn't let my fears and all of those things just stop me from making my life choices. Because these choices have a direct impact on what you learn. And the things that you learn end up creating the person that you are and the person you want to be. So this is me when I won Canada's Next Top Young Philanthropist, and it wouldn't have been possible if I just sat aside and passively learned. So when I was in high school and university, I just couldn't wait to get out into the real world and make some real changes, and actually do something. I felt as a young person and as a student, I couldn't take on the role of a teacher just yet. I felt like I didn't know enough to make a difference. But I really wish that there was someone back then to tell me what I'm going to tell you right now. That you really can do something. You don't have to wait until you're older. You can start right now. I always thought I had to be an expert and know everything about a topic before you can start teaching anyone. And this isn't true. You don't have to know everything, and nobody expects you to. There's only 2 things that you need to know. Oh, how to use PowerPoint. That's one of them. So there's only 2 things that you need to know. 1, you need to know something. 2, you need to know someone. And that's pretty easy, because everyone in this room, everyone outside of it, has a skill or knows something that they can teach someone. And everyone knows at least one other person. And if you don't, now you know me. So you can teach me something. And the fact is, no 2 people know the exact same things or have the same experiences. So there's always going to be someone that you can teach. And teaching can really be just that basic. The key is investing time, resources, and energy into helping someone learn. So how can you do this? There's so many different ways. You guys can teach your parents how to use the internet, or your grandparents how to use the internet. You can coach sports teams. You can make a YouTube video on doing makeup tutorials, or how to play a certain song on guitar. There's so many different things, and there's especially one thing that means a lot to me that you can do. You can be a mentor. And to me, mentoring is the highest level of being a teacher. Because you're not only passing on skills and knowledge, but you're building a relationship on this teacher-learner interaction. So this is why I developed the program, It Starts With Her. I wanted to impact young girls. So It Starts With Her is a year-long after-school group mentoring program for girls in grades 7 and 8 who come from high-risk backgrounds, which means a history of abuse, or low social economic standing, or they have absent parents in their life. So these girls would come together as a group and they would meet with 2 female mentors, university and college-age women, and they would focus on a different theme every week. Themes like financial management, reproductive health, volunteerism, all of these things that will help build skills in them so that they can make healthy life decisions in the future. And I'm sure you're wondering why grade 7 and 8 girls. Because girls at that age are 3 times more likely to suffer from feelings of academic inadequacy, suffer from depression, drop out of school, have low self-esteem, and when we add risk factors and the fact that most of them don't have positive female role models in their life, then the probability of them having future success is extremely low. And there's another reason why I want to invest in girls in grades 7 and 8. And the best way for me to explain it is to go back to the fish problem. So when you give a girl a fish, you feed her for the day. But when you teach a girl to fish, she feeds herself, her family, and her community. And this is a fact. Girls will invest 90% of their skills and knowledge back into the community. So when you give these girls an opportunity to learn and grow, you're not only investing in them, but you're investing in the local community, you're investing in the global community. And this is just one example of a mentoring program, which is just one example of how you can play the role of a teacher and really make an impact. Like I said before, there's so many different ways that you can play a teacher. And the most important thing is that you can start now. You don't have to wait until you're older. The time is now. The time is now to do something. So I've talked a lot about the importance of the quick fixer, the teacher, and the learner. But I did mention that there's actually one more role, and that's the apathetic role. So this person just doesn't care. This person has no interest. They choose not to act. And the sad thing is, I often hear people saying that young people, like you and like me, are apathetic. But when I look at you guys and I think of youth-led projects like Good Movement and other ones that exist, I find that really hard to believe. So I think young people are the most motivated to go out there and create change and make a difference. So as you guys move forward from today and you go through your workshops and encounter more experiences, I hope you guys never choose to be apathetic, because apathy is boring, and the world can exist without apathy. But whether you choose to be a quick fixer, a teacher, or a learner, I hope you guys always choose to care. Thank you.